And go. All right. Flying by the seat of my pants this time. Here's a little bit of a, what do they call it? Inside baseball. Normally when I shoot this, I have this thing in my head where I'm like, if I wear jeans or like some kind of important pants, then I'll feel like I'm doing something professional and it'll make me act more professional. But this time I was like, fuck that. And I'm just wearing running shorts. Because we're in quarantine, so who gives a fuck? So today we're going to see if I've still got dementia, if I can remember any words. But I don't remember any topic for today. No, basically today is the first one where I'm just going to go through the notes of stuff that I made during the week, but I don't have a specific sort of this episode. But going off the last episode about conspiracy theories, there's a bunch of things. I do this every time, actually. I write a list of stuff that I want to talk about. And during the week, I'm like, oh, yeah, it'd be good to talk about that because there's this thing like, oh, yeah, I should mention that. And then I start filming and then I just completely forget about it. But there's one thing that really stood out that I wanted to talk about in the conspiracy thing was about this one particular guy that I met. And it's kind of actually the reason why I wanted to do that episode. I wish I had told more stories like this. But this guy I met when I was traveling in Hungary. I met this dude who he was from like somewhere in South America, maybe Argentina or something like that. And I don't know anything about the guy, but he seemed like a kind of stoner type. And I think he was 23 or something. And he was telling me about how he was on his way to Sweden to start his first ever job. Because up until that point, he'd been living with his parents and had never had a job before. So, you know, I shouldn't judge him for that, but this is already ringing alarm bells for me. And I said, oh, that's really cool, man. What are you going to do in Sweden? And he's like, oh, I'm going to be a tennis coach. I was like, you know, that's a job. I know a guy who does that as a job, so that's fine. But I don't know. It seems kind of weird to just like, I'm like, have you ever worked as a tennis coach before? And he's like, no. I'm like, all right, just fly to Sweden and try it then. But the interactions got weirder because he started asking me about conspiracy theories. I think I might have interrupted him while he was talking to the girls in the hostel room about some conspiracy. I don't think I interrupted him, but maybe I just like, you know, I was getting into bed or something and joined in the conversation. And he started talking about flat Earth, and this is why I wanted to mention it last week. But he was kind of quick to tell me that he didn't believe in flat Earth, but he had a lot of like flat Earth kind of examples to give me. And I'm like, wait, so you don't believe in flat Earth? And he's like, nah, I've been getting into this new theory that the Earth is actually like 100 times bigger than what they say it is. So the flat Earth map, like if you've ever seen what flat Earth is, show us like the world map where you have like the North Pole in the middle and then all the countries around that, and then the South Pole is like this ice wall that goes around it. He's like, yeah, that's the map, but it's like a small section, like, you know, a round section like this on like this huge Earth, and like all the rest of the Earth is a secret. Like it's like the dark side of the moon, like no one is allowed to go outside of this part of the Earth, and there's actually like way more Earth and stuff. I was like, all right, that's an interesting theory, but I've got no idea why somebody would invent that idea, but I indulged him. And kind of like all the reasons for that are the same, like all the proofs of that are kind of the same as the flat Earth theory because it's based on this same kind of layout. And he's like, have you ever thought about it? Like, why can't you get a flight from Australia to Argentina, like a direct flight? And I was like, I've never thought about that before, to be honest. And he's like, you should look into it. I'm like, all right, if you think I should look into it, I'll look into it. Like, I'm lying in a fucking hostel bed. I've got plenty of time on my hands, and I'm pathetic enough to look into it. So I looked into it. Sure enough, there is a Qantas flight which goes direct from Sydney to Argentina. And I'm like, well, I looked into it and there is a flight. So that kind of disproves your theory immediately, right? And he's like, yeah, like there's a flight. Like, you know, he was obviously like trying to struggle for an explanation. He's like, yeah, there's a flight, but like, look how long it takes. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, look, like at the time. I'm like, yeah, okay, it's 12 and a half hours. And he's like, yeah, see, like if the earth is round like they say it is, it should actually be much longer than 12 and a half hours to get from there to there because it's like such a huge distance. I'm like, I don't know why you think that. And he's like, oh, because I've seen it. Like, you know, this guy, this video I watched, like he does all the maths and stuff. Like if you actually look into it and do the maths, like you figure it out, it's impossible to get there in 12 and a half hours. I'm like, all right, once again, yes, I am petty enough to look into this and do the maths. You know, I'm an engineer and I love arguing. So I was like, all right, I'll do the maths then. Which is pretty easy, really. Like it's just, you know, what is the distance from Sydney to whatever the capital of Argentina is? What's the average flight speed of like a Boeing A380 or whatever? And then, you know, there's a simple equation to work it out. And I worked it out that, you know, I did the maths and it came out to being like 12.51 hours. I'm like, yeah, look, 12.5 hours. And he's like, yeah, like he was initially telling me it should be like 4 hours longer. I'm like, it's 12.5. And he's like, yeah, see, that's longer than 12 hours 30. I'm like, no, that's like exactly 12 hours 30. Like 12.5 is 12:30 seconds. Like, anyway. And then at that point, he was finally like, oh, okay, well, you know, I don't know. I guess like at that stage, people will start questioning like, oh, well, you know, you looked up the average flight speed of an A380, but that's just like what they put on the internet because that's what they want you to think how fast it goes, or like that's the distance they want you to think that it is from this country to this country. And at that point, you're like, well, you know, like if I can't trust Google Maps and if I can't trust the stuff from Boeing, then like how the fuck can you know who you're going to trust? Like who some guy on YouTube who said that flight takes too long. Where's he getting his numbers from? And how is that more credible? Like, yeah. Well, I thought that was a funny kind of interaction. But yeah, that also is just a good anecdote, a good explanation of how petty I am and how willing I am to actually indulge in these flat earth things and just waste my time doing calculations that I already know the answer to. But anyway, if you have any flat earth proofs, please send them to me. Because that's actually something I thought would be funny to do as a video, is to join another one of those flat earth groups and just go through the pictures and be like, all right, well, let's explain this properly. And then, you know, go into the comments and see what kind of abuse people hurl at me. But maybe that's something for the future. I've still got some other videos that I'm trying to edit at the moment that just haven't been putting enough time into it, so that can be the next thing on the agenda. But yeah, the point of like the message I was trying to give last week is that I think that conspiracy theorists, like I've you know, I said I used to be somewhat of a conspiracy theorist, and the problem is that when people get too into conspiracies, they tend to like as soon as you see something which is plausible or something which is true, like you find out one small conspiracy is true, people tend to just paint everything with that same brush. Be like, oh, well, if this was true, then this must be true as well. And it's kind of like you need to have that strength and persistence to treat every case individually. Because if you start thinking like, oh, they lied to us about this and it was actually this, they must be lying to us about everything. Like, firstly, there's no they. Secondly, like, yeah, you have to treat everything individually. So that's my message to conspiracy theorists, is if you really want to, you know, be woke and like look into everything individually, because, you know, if you watch someone like Alex Jones, he goes on a rant and in one sentence he'll say like 10 totally different conspiracy theories that are completely unrelated to each other. But he just goes on this roll and it starts snowballing in his head because all these things seem to be linking up in his head. And he's like, yeah, and that's why this and this and this. And the number 3, it's a numerology and the aliens. And then Hillary Clinton and stuff. And it's like, the fuck has any of that got to do with it? So like, people just build on this insanity of like, everything is related to this and everyone's lying to us. So just take a step back and, you know, relax for a second and treat everything individually, because you really need to analyze the information properly to get any kind of sane perspective on it. Yeah, so that was another dig at conspiracy theorists. I was talking about trying to do a video, and I wanted to explain something quickly. I just got a piece of paper here. Right from the shorts. That's right, you got to see the shorts. Yeah, I mentioned that I haven't really had enough time to work on the videos that I mentioned even in the first episode of this podcast. I'm doing a video about my first virtual birthday party. And I'm still doing that, but it's tough because it's like 5 hours of footage, and every time I open up the project, I'm like, where do I start? How do I begin to edit this thing? Like, you know, choosing what is worth going into like a 10-minute or a 15-minute video. So yeah, I've kind of been procrastinating on that a little bit. But I thought I would mention something that I've just gotten into this week, because I've sort of been trying to make the most of the quarantine situation in terms of like learning new skills. Like, I'm always trying to learn new skills and improve on things, but, you know, because I can't have any, like, I can't go out and hang out with friends and that kind of stuff. So you have a lot more spare time. But I noticed like I always take on too much stuff. And I mentioned in the first episode that I really need to like come up with ways to organize myself and everything. And I realized that there's things that I want to do daily and there's things that I want to do weekly, like, you know, say something that I want to do like twice or 3 times a week or something. And I'm kind of only just keeping track of it in my head, and like I put reminders on, I make lists of things that I want to do, and I write down notes of like the progress that I'm at with certain aspects of my life and stuff. But I realized that I wanted to create like a weekly checklist thing of like, did I do this thing this week, and did I do this thing every day, and that kind of thing. So I started writing down all these things. And then in the process of doing that and writing down like how long each one of them should take or how long I should spend on it, the process of doing that, I was kind of like looking up online, like how to, you know, like an app. I need like an app for tracking like weekly tasks or like things that I do every day. Like I was trying to figure out what it's called. And then I realized that what I was looking for is a habit tracker, because these things are habits. Like I'm trying to train myself into a habit. And even though like some of these things are things that I want to do maybe for a month or a couple of months, so they're not going to be a forever habit. It's like I want to do them consistently now. So you treat it as a habit. But basically, like, so you've got an idea of how much ridiculous stuff I'm trying to cram into a week at the moment. I mean, it's not that crazy, but I've got a list of 10 things here. So the first thing, I'm trying to meditate every day. That's the only daily thing I'm doing. And that's just 10 minutes. Then I'm trying to learn German because I live in Germany. I'm also trying to learn piano, which is something new that I started during quarantine. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I've always had pianos and stuff and never really learned to do it properly. So I'm kind of trying to tackle that properly now. I'm learning guitar, even though I've been playing guitar since I was 8. I'm actually still doing lessons. So it's something like, yeah, I practice guitar and I do weekly lessons with a guy on Skype. I'm trying to learn a new software called Blender, like a 3D modeling software that's kind of for my design stuff. And I'm trying to learn WordPress to make my own website, which is kind of halfway in the making. So look forward to that. I'm trying to edit videos. Like I mentioned, I've got a bunch of videos that I'm trying to do. So I need to make some time each week to be like, spend 30 minutes or an hour or whatever just editing one of the videos in the queue of shit that I've got to finish. And then I've still got music that I'm trying to release. Like I said in my first podcast that was my main goal right now, is to release songs. That's kind of being held up because I need some help with some drums and stuff. But actually, if you're a drummer and you have a setup for recording drums at home, please contact me, because I'm still waiting on a guy who's like one of my favorite drummers from a band that I really like. But I know like his time is spent, like it's split between a lot of different projects of like well-known bands and stuff. So he did offer to do it, but I know like I can't expect him to like put aside time for that. So if that happens, it's cool. But if you are a drummer, it'd be cool to have somebody that I could send stuff to and we could collaborate remotely. So hit me up. But you need to have like a proper setup for recording drums, and you need to know how to record and have microphones and all that kind of stuff. And then, so that was number 8. Then I'm trying to work on designs. Like I've got a bunch of products that I'm trying to design on my own in my own time. So that's a weekly task. And then editing photos. Like I think I took like 9,000 photos when I was traveling in Europe. So I'm still trying to catch up on that. But yeah, so just, I mean, I'm not trying to brag with this. It's trying to like, I'm trying to explain why I'm kind of stressed out with organizing my time so much, is because I've got all these things that I'm trying to focus on at the same time. And yeah, so the point of bringing this up is that I found this concept of habit trackers, and I got an app which is called New Habit app, and I looked at a few different options, but I chose this one because it has 4 different types of habits on it. So one is just like a checkbox, like did you do it? And then one is a counter, like you put in how many times you did something. Like say you want to do like piano lessons and their videos or something, like how many of the videos did you go through? But then they have timed habits, which is the one I was interested in, which is like, I want to spend this amount of time doing something 2 times a week or whatever. So when you start doing it, you hit start. And, if it's 40 minutes or something, when it gets to 40 minutes, it says, hey, you're done. Well done. Like you've finished this task for the day. And it tracks it and keeps all your statistics and stuff and sends you reminders when you should be doing stuff. And then the last thing is, the last habit that it tracks is bad habits. So if you're trying to quit something, like if you're trying to quit smoking or you're trying to quit sugar or quit drinking coffee or something, it's a it's a timer. So once you start it, it tells you how long it's been since you've done that bad habit and rewards you for like, you can put in steps of what goals you want to achieve and stuff. So New Habit app, it seems pretty good so far. I've only used it for a week, but if that's something you're interested in, then check it out. You can also like add your friends and challenge them and stuff. Like me and my sister are trying to challenge each other to who can meditate like the most days in a row. But yeah, I just thought that was something cool to mention, because especially during this quarantine time, I assume that a lot of other people are trying to sort of get into some habits of, maybe learning a new skill or doing something different. So yeah, check it out. What else have I got here? I want to, even though, everyone's sick of it, I want to talk about Corona briefly. The reason why I wanted to bring it up is because I think we're getting to the point now where people are starting to be like, okay, everything's got to go back to normal. And I kind of agree in a sense, like, yeah, we need to start operating again. Otherwise, the economy is just going to get worse and worse. And also, we can't sit around doing nothing all the time. Like, we've got to go back to work at some point. But I feel like people are getting the idea that the virus is going away. And I just wanted to mention, like, yeah, even though we are going to go back to work and the restrictions are going to ease off and stuff, and maybe it's just a matter of, like, the hospitals can handle the patients and stuff now, still just keep in mind that the virus hasn't gotten any better. Like, it hasn't slowed down. So yeah, restrictions are going to get loosened a little bit, but I don't think you should go running out to go and hang out with your friends and stuff. Like, still, just do things sensibly. Like, do what you need to do if you need to go out, or if you need to go into your office to work or whatever, do that. But, like, don't rush out to go partying and stuff, because I was thinking about a way to explain this, like an analogy, because I've been watching the figures and keeping track of, like, the new cases and stuff. And people talk about flattening the curve. And what that means is, stopping it so it doesn't grow so much and making this curve, more long and drawn out, flattened. Basically what I'm seeing in the data at the moment is, like, yeah, we were getting this exponential growth like this, like it was getting more and more and more. And you could say it's flattened out in a way, but what's happened is, rather than curving more and more and more, it's just stopped at a point where it's like, it's on a linear growth. So it's like a straight incline. So I guess you could say that graph is flat because it's a straight line, but it's still consistently growing at the same rate. It just means that the rate isn't increasing. So the way I thought of to explain this is, like, imagine you have a truck or a bus or something. Let's call it a truck. So you got a truck, right? And then there's a bunch of people on a road in front of it, just standing on the road. And the bus, the truck, I've already fucked it up. The truck, when it hits somebody, it gives them the coronavirus. That's how people catch that's how the cases grow. So the bus takes off, right? In the beginning, it stopped, and it takes off and starts hitting people, and we go, oh shit, like, this bus is giving people coronavirus. Truck, fuck, I gotta make up my mind. It's gonna be a truck. So it speeds up, and it starts speeding up, and then we're like, oh shit, like, it's more and more people are getting it, and it keeps speeding up. So it's like, it's got to 20 k's an hour, and it's hitting a bunch of people, and then it keeps speeding up, and it's at 40 k's an hour, and like the amount of people that it's hitting is more because it's going faster, right? Because it's accelerating. So it keeps getting faster and faster and faster. And when it gets to 80 kilometers an hour, everyone's like, oh my God, this truck keeps getting faster, and it keeps hitting more and more people each day. It keeps getting faster. And they're like, we've got to do something to stop it. So they do something to stop it, whatever that is. And I can't think of something in this analogy. But what's happened is, so it was increasing in speed, got to 80 kilometers an hour, and then it got to 100 kilometers an hour. And we're like, oh God, it's getting faster and faster and faster. And then we, put in a bunch of restrictions and stuff. And now what's happened is it's stopped getting faster. It's just continuing to go at 100 kilometers an hour. So it's way worse than it was 2 months ago when it was going 20 kilometers an hour, because it's going faster now. It's going 100 kilometers an hour, and it's still going at that speed. It hasn't slowed down at all. Like, it's just not getting more fast. You know what I mean? So I think that's the situation we're in now. What you need to look at is a graph of the number of new cases per day over time, because what's happened is that has stayed steady. Like, it's not increasing, but it's still very high. So we're at the peak of the number of people catching it per day, and it's not going up more, but we're staying at the peak. So each day, however many thousand people are getting it, that hasn't decreased. It's just steady, but it's still at the peak. So we're definitely not recovering from it. We're not it's not getting any better. It's not, well, except in the case of maybe Australia. Like, actually in Australia, I think it has decreased. But yeah, globally, it's just steady wiping people out. So yeah, we need to figure out how to get back to work and, how to get people back out doing stuff and everything. And I think, like, over time, we'll figure out different ways to do things. We'll figure out a more efficient method for testing people and keeping track of who's been in contact with who and stuff, so that it doesn't blow up again. But just keep in mind that it's still around, and still a lot of people are catching it each day. So just because you're allowed to go and hang out with your friends doesn't mean, and go and party or whatever, doesn't mean you should, because now more than ever in history, you're most likely now to catch it going out in public. Like, that risk hasn't decreased at all. It's at the peak. So keep that in mind. I hate to be like the fun police, but yeah, I just don't want people to, like, people get the wrong idea. Just look at the actual numbers and, don't go crazy. Yeah, let's move on. Last week, it took me about 40 seconds to think of the word segment, and this time I've remembered it. So I think I'm recovering from my dementia, which is pretty good. But yeah, I've got a new segment, which has actually been a recurring segment in every episode since episode 2, which is Life in Germany. And it's mostly just me complaining about Germany. So sorry, Germans, but I've got a lot to complain about, and I'm very petty, and I love arguing. But this week in Life in Germany, straight out of Berlin, you're hearing it from the source. Today's topic is German police. Actually, I've got 2 topics, but the first one is German police. And what I wanted to say about German police is, like, if you were ever thinking about doing some serious crime, like, robbing a bank, or definitely got the dementia again. I thought I was cured. Oh well. If you were thinking about robbing a bank, Germany, and Berlin in particular, would be the place to do it, because I reckon you could run into a bank, guns blazing, steal a bunch of shit, and police might not turn up. I think this is kind of a, maybe this is a case-by-case thing, because I have seen things happen where, like, there was a fight on the street and 30 seconds later there was 7 police cars there. But on the other side of this, there's an intersection on the road that goes from here to the office that I work in. And it's a pretty big street. It's Warschauer Straße. It's like one of the main streets that goes through Prenzlauer Berg and Friedrichshain and stuff. It's a pretty, like, main kind of artery that goes north-south. And there's this intersection in, like, one of the busier parts of that road that I noticed yesterday. The traffic lights weren't working, and I saw that there was a police van there. And I was like, oh, they're probably, like, directing cars or doing the thing, this kind of shit, because the traffic lights were out. But when I got closer to the lights, there was a police van there, but there was no police officers standing around. And I was like, oh, maybe it just happened or whatever. So then today, I went to the office again and didn't notice on the way there, but on the way back, because it was busy, like, there was a lot more cars, the intersection lights were still off, but there's no cops there, like no police car or anything. And there was no police officers when I saw it yesterday. 24 hours later, I go through there and it's like peak traffic, and it's just like the Wild West. Like, people are just, like, edging into the intersection and going around each other, and, like, just Like, people are just going whenever they want and trying to like drive around cars and avoid each other and everything. There was no direction at all. And that this is something that happened at least 24 hours ago, as far as I know. And just nothing has happened. Like, they didn't fix the traffic lights or anything. Police obviously knew about it because there was a police car there yesterday. And today it's just like, whatever. The lights aren't working. Figure it out yourself. It's like, so yeah. My note here was German police, Wild West. Because basically, yeah, sometimes it feels like it's the fucking Wild West. You can run around doing anything here, and who knows if the police will help out. But yeah, I don't know. I think it seems like in Germany, like the laws are really strict, but there's just not that much enforcement. Maybe, I don't know. So topic number 2, life in Germany, is I go to like, there's 3 different supermarkets that are around my house, and all 3 of them don't have coriander. So I've decided that, well, not decided, I'm making the claim that coriander doesn't exist in Germany or in Berlin. So if you like this argument of like coriander is great or coriander is disgusting, like some people just absolutely hate coriander, like it killed their entire family, you don't have to worry about that debate here because it doesn't exist. But I like coriander, but I guess I'll just have to have my fond memories of what that tastes like because, yeah, like it's just doesn't exist here. There's a lot of like, this was my big gripe with, I think I talked about it in the Germany versus Australia thing, like just Asian food doesn't exist in Germany. Everything's just like bread and pasta and sausages and meat, cheese, just gluten, meat and lactose, everything, all that good stuff. All right, next segment. It's the one you all know and love. Things that shouldn't annoy me, but they do. And they really do. All right, my first one here is people who say things are natural. This, like, I think the word natural just doesn't mean anything anymore. Like, I don't know. Actually, maybe that's not the right way to say it. I think no, actually, it's the opposite of that. I think people think that natural means something that it doesn't mean, maybe. What I'm trying to say is that people always say, like, you should not have that because it's not natural. Like, you should have this because it's more natural. Like, people talk about it, like these conspiracy types that I was talking about, like the stoner type. They'll be like, oh yeah, like I'll smoke weed, but I would never touch anything like unnatural. Like weed's like people who advocate like legalizing weed and stuff. They're like, yeah, weed's natural. Like it's a plant and everything. Like I would never do anything unnatural like cocaine or heroin or something. It's like, this is the perfect explanation of what I'm trying to say here, because cocaine comes from a plant and heroin comes from a plant. And marijuana comes from a plant. So to say one thing is natural and the other one is not, it's just like looking at it in the most basic, zoomed out fucking lens. It's like, oh, I can see that's a plant, so that's natural. It's like, just because this plant has been crushed up or, processed or whatever. But yeah, maybe the drug thing is like a bad analogy, but this whole thing of things being natural versus unnatural just shits me, because it's like the second something doesn't look like its original form, it's not natural. Maybe that is the definition of unnatural. But I think about it as like anything that comes from, something organic is natural, I guess. And something that has been synthesized by humans is unnatural. But yeah, it's hard to draw the line of like, how do you distinguish between what's natural and what's unnatural? Because at some point, like, everything is natural, because like everything we have came from something from the earth. Like something thing is made of metal and plastic, but like, you know, this metal came from a rock under the ground, and the plastic came from oil that we dug out of the ground and whatever. So in a way, that everything's fucking natural. So yeah, where do you draw the line? And like, you know, humans are mostly made out of carbon, and we know that carbon only comes from one place in space, and that's from stars. So technically, like, all people are aliens, because everything that we're made of came from somewhere else in space, and we're unnatural because, you know, whatever. But yeah, don't say this bullshit about being natural. Or people say things are like drug free. Like, I can't remember, there was an example. Someone was doing like an ad for something on a video I was watching. They were like, oh yeah, you know, it's like all natural ingredients and it's drug free and stuff. But it's like, I wish I knew the example. It was some kind of like supplement or something. Whatever. That's all I got for that one. But yeah, don't feed into that bullshit of like something is natural or unnatural. You know, like if you take a vitamin D supplement or something, and people will be like, oh yeah, that's not natural though. Like you should just go out into the sun and absorb it from the sun. It's like, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Why does it fucking matter if it comes from a pill or from the sky? Like, it's the same nutrient. You get it into your body, like, whatever. Oh no, I put this in the wrong segment. I had more rant about Germany. I've had enough ranting for this episode. I'll do that next time. I reckon might just do like some housekeeping and wrap it up. Like I said, I didn't really have a plan for this episode, but I've got some more stuff to talk about in housekeeping. So first update is I got a new tripod, which you can wonderfully not see because it doesn't make any difference for you, but it makes setting this shit up for me easier, so that's good. Before I had the camera like sitting on this janky ass box with like the strap from the camera like resting under it, so it would like tilt it forward a little bit, and then I'd try and plug my cable into the camera and it'd like almost fall off, and I'm trying to press buttons and not move the camera. So that was shocking. But yeah, I got a tripod now, so getting more legit. Next big thing is my shirt arrived. This was the drama of last week. Yeah, like I've been waiting for this shirt to arrive for like 2 months, and I finally got it. And yeah, I talked about this last week, but I went to the post office and they were like, oh yeah, €13.30. I'm like, for what? What am I paying for? She couldn't tell me. I didn't have enough money. They were about to close. So I went back, paid the thing, and got it home, showed it to my housemate. And she's like, yeah, it's customs. And I went through all the form and stuff, and it was customs. So my rant is this. This is my message to H3H3, even though I know that there's absolutely zero chance that they'll ever see this. But basically what I want to say is I really like H3H3, and I like, you know, the two hosts, Ethan and Neela, and I like Teddy Fresh, and I love the design of the clothes and everything. So I'm not knocking you, but I just want to say that I've since discovered that there is actually a German clothing store where you can order these from, and it would have been a lot smarter for me to order it through them. But you should also consider that if you have international shipping, you should kind of like cover all the... You should know what's expected in each country, and you should like... I don't know. Basically, the shirt was $40, the postage was $20, and then this is American dollars. And then when it gets here, you've got to pay €15 or $15 customs. So like the shipping plus the customs is $35 for a $40 shirt. So you're almost doubling the price. So like either like sell it in a way, because I've bought so much stuff online, like from eBay and stuff from all different countries. And not only have I never had to pay customs on something when it arrived in Germany, but never in my entire life have I ever had to do that, even in Australia. And I've bought things from America plenty of times before. So I feel like that's something where it must be something to do with like the registering of, you know, this package is like a new sale item that's just been sold. You shouldn't have to pay customs on that. So yeah, I don't know. I would just say like look into that and sort it out, or just tell your customers, hey, like it's not worth us shipping to Germany because you're gonna have to pay this fee. Just buy it from this company, this clothing store, whatever. But that being said, it's here. I like it. What I will say is not that impressed with the quality. Like this sleeve is kind of like all like bunched up in the corner. I don't know. It's okay. The thing is, I really like the designs. Like I think the clothes are cool. Like the designs are cool. I like all the different colors and the styles and everything. And I've seen like the jumpers and stuff in shops that sell them before. And I know that the jumpers are good quality. And I know like Ila's always talking about on the podcast how she's, you know, checking samples and trying to get good quality stuff because she wants the material to feel good and they want it to be heavy and everything. I feel like they didn't really achieve that with this, but I know like the jumpers are really good and I know they're probably trying to improve stuff all the time. But yeah. And actually my housemate has one of the beanies too, which is really nice quality. But yeah, this is kind of, it's good, but it's not that great. And I still really love the brand and I think it's a cool design. Like the colors and everything, it's sick. You might have noticed that maybe I sound a little bit different today because these microphones, I'm making a video about this, but these microphones are notoriously quiet, so you have to like crank the volume. And some people use something called a cloud lifter to make them louder. And I bought these things called, it's like an active booster, and it's by this company called Ortiz Luthiers, based in Spain. I'm going to make a video about that where I've tested them out because, yeah, if you got one of these microphones, they're really good and they're much cheaper than all the other options. So that's a little update for you, but it's some nerdy shit. So if you're not interested, then I'll move on. But I will say one thing about that is there was this guy on YouTube who made this video, like just trash talking these microphones and basically saying like it's the biggest waste of money. Like, you know, you have to buy all this other stuff to make it good and all this stuff. And he was using it like this, like he was like, yeah, this microphone's crap. Like it sounds, there's no bass. Like it's not warm at all. It's like, dude, you have to eat the microphone. Like it has to be right in front of your mouth. But yeah, like these mics have been used on like hundreds of albums that everyone knows. Like Michael Jackson recorded Thriller on one. You know, like Metallica used them. Red Hot Chili Peppers did like Blood Sugar Sex Magic and stuff. So you know they're good. And if you're not getting good results out of it, then you need to figure out what you're doing wrong because, yeah, they're pretty much one of the best. And, you know, everyone's using them in podcasts and stuff as well, like Joe Rogan and all those people. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty funny to trash talk something like that. And he got reamed in the comments. I wonder if he'll do a video to say that he was wrong or something. But, yeah, that was funny. Running out of shit to talk about. That's all my housekeeping. Shout outs this week. This week I wanted to do a shout out to two people that have no idea who I am. Angie Merkel and Jacinta Ardern. And I'm not going to go into politics. I'm just going to say that I think that they're really good. And I'm not like a feminist, like an ultra. I mean, I could say I'm a feminist, but I'm not like an ultra, like trying to, get in the good books of the female audience by saying like, go these powerful women and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's cool. But I'm saying this because I genuinely think like Angie Merkel, or Ange, and Jacinta Ardern, without going into it, I think they've been doing a lot of good things in terms of coronavirus and also in terms of like climate change and stuff. So just a random shout out because I had no one else to mention. I think there's some cool chicks, and they're probably like, of all the world leaders that are around at the moment, I think they're probably the most impressive. So yeah, enjoy that little random comment. Just looking around for like any other ideas that might be floating around in here, but don't really have anything. Maybe I'll just talk about that one thing that I was gonna do that one extra rant about Germany. Let's go into it. Fill up the remaining 10 minutes or so, maybe 5 minutes. I forgot to talk about this in the Germany versus Australia video. Like, this is something that happened ages ago. In Germany, like, the service industry is like, you're always trained in Australia or in America that the customer is always right, and that just doesn't exist in Germany. And I just wanted to say that because this one thing happened to us. At the time, I was working remotely for a guy in Australia from home, and all of a sudden the electricity just turned off. And I went to my housemate. I'm like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "I don't know. Like, have you paid the bill?" And she's like, "Yeah, of course I paid the bill." I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't know. It's just weird that like the power's just turned off randomly." And, I checked the fuse box and everything, and it was all good. I'm like, "You sure you paid the bill? Like, you can tell me if you didn't." She's like, "Yeah, I definitely paid it." I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm like, "Well, I got to work. Like, I can't work without the power." She's like, "Okay, let's go fix it." I'm like, "Can't we just call them or something?" I'm like, no, that's not how it works in Germany. You have to drive to the fucking place, like the office of like the electricity company. So we drove there and spoke to the person at the counter, and they're like, "Yeah, basically, you owe 500 and something euros for like the last 5 months of electricity, or 6 months or something. You have to pay it." And she's like, "What the hell? Like, I've been paying every month." And they're like, "Well, you owe this much money." And we're like, "Well, who do I speak to about it?" And they're like, you can't speak to anyone about it until you've paid it." Like, they basically said, you have to pay what you owe, and then you can come and speak to someone. And that was the part that was crazy to me, that like they wouldn't even look into it until like you pay this 550 euros up front. So we had to go to this machine, pay the money up front, and then, wait in a line to talk to someone. And it turned out that whoever entered my housemate into the system, like of this company, entered her in there twice, like with 2 different accounts. So it was a duplicate account. And one of them, obviously, she was paying, and the other one, like, their system was seeing it as like they were sending her bills and she wasn't paying it, and they were just building up and up over like 6 months. And then even though the other duplicate account was being paid perfectly on time every month, but they saw this one and they're like, "Oh, this person hasn't paid for 6 months. Let's go and shut their electricity off." So they shut the electricity off. They realized the mistake they made, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, yeah, we accidentally had 2 accounts, and we can see you have been paying for it, so we just remove this account and then we'll refund you the money." Which, thank God they refund you the money, because I would be not surprised if they made that difficult as well. But then we're like, "Okay, cool, so you fucked up, and we had to drive all the way here for your fuck up." We're like, "All right, well, so when will you turn the electricity on?" And they're like, "Oh, we'll send somebody out there tomorrow morning." It's like, definitely send somebody out there right now. Like, that's obvious. You made the mistake. Like, you turned off our electricity for no reason. Immediately turn it back on. And they're like, no, we can't send somebody out till tomorrow. And it's like, I'm working from home, so I can't make money because of you. So I'm losing a day of wage. Also, we've got a fridge load of food that's just like, it's all going to be gone by tomorrow. So like, there's no compensation for my lost day of work or the food in the fridge. Like, no remorse at all. No reimbursement for like us having to fucking drive to their office for no reason. It's just like, yeah, sorry, like, we made a mistake. We'll turn it back on tomorrow. And it's like, that's all we can do. That's just like so backwards. The fact that they fucked up, we're paying for them, we're paying a fee in a contract for them to provide a service. We pay this amount of money and you provide that service. And then all of a sudden they're just like, for this one day, we just won't provide that service. You can keep paying. And it's just out of the blue, unexpected. And we won't do anything to make up for it. It's like, fuck you. That's so shit. So, yeah. I don't think something could fly like that in Australia. Like, you know, you'd go to the ombudsman or something and surely you would get some kind of reimbursement. I mean, even still in Australia, like, shitty things can happen, but like, at least there's somebody to go to. I'm under the impression here, although I don't understand, you know, because I don't speak the language, so it's a lot harder for me to find it, but I'm under the impression here that there's not somebody like an ombudsman that you can go to. It's basically just like, we provide the electricity, we're the boss, we do what we want, you give us your money, and we'll give you the electricity if we feel like it. It's like, yeah, it sucks. It's just shitty. Anyway, that's my last rant. So, yeah, that'll do for this week. And, yeah, that's it. Stay healthy. Keep up good work in the quarantines and all that kind of thing. And say hi to your mom. And enjoy your week. And I'll see you next time.